This is Law of Attraction Explored. I'm Tim Grimes. If you'd like a free guide that explains the hidden link between relaxation and the law of attraction, or if you want more information about my books or my coaching, you can visit RadicalCounselor.com. Enjoy the episode. So I thought I would go over something today that is discussed but not discussed enough, and it's an important point to remember. And kind of like last episode, something that we can go back to and remind ourselves of again and again. And that is simply that we are manifesting things all the time. You cannot be manifesting. Manifestation is an inherent part of living. You're manifesting your life right now. So this whole idea of being a successful or unsuccessful manifester is really inaccurate because you're always manifesting. It's just, are you manifesting things when you take a step back and look at things objectively from a rational viewpoint? Are you manifesting things that you want, or are you manifesting things that you don't want? Likewise, at least in many ways, on a practical level, you're manifesting whether you feel good or whether you feel bad. You know, you are actually manifesting those things. And there are perhaps certain, physiological things that we cannot change. But generally speaking, on an emotional level, for at least most of our day-to-day life, we are manifesting how we feel. We're choosing stuff. We're choosing what we're focusing upon. And, having a obsession over manifesting specific external things can be all well and good, but it also makes it so we forget this larger point, which is even more true, which is that we're always manifesting. Always manifesting. You cannot fail in manifesting something. And if you want to focus on specifically manifesting certain external things, like better relationships, or a better work situation, or more money, or better health, it helps to recognize that you already are doing that on some level. It's just you want to improve upon what you currently are manifesting right now. And this, of course, is why I always go back to saying, focus on feeling good. Because if you focus on feeling good and focus on feeling good in this moment, then this natural state of abundance will eventually externally manifest itself as well in your outer life. But when you really get present in this moment, as we constantly talk about in this show, when you really get present in this moment, you literally are manifesting abundance right now. You're literally doing it right now. You literally have what you want on some big level, big picture way. And the problem is perhaps we can manifest abundance in this real, in the moment way right now. But then we don't stay with this sense of abundance as we move through our day. You could say that we lack the focus, or that we get distracted, and that we lose it. And we choose other things to focus on that are less of what we want and that don't feel as good. So I hope that is somewhat obvious, that's somewhat clear. And I thought we would turn to Richard Dotz's masterpiece, Dissolve the Problem. We've, talked about that book before. It's one of Richard's best books. I highly recommend reading it. And I'm going to read a short excerpt where Richard just talks a little bit about what we're discussing and ways to make it so that we are manifesting more of what we want as we move through the day, as opposed to manifesting stuff that we don't want as we move through the day. So Richard writes in Dissolve the Problem, each time you set a new intention, you shift your focal point and therefore change your point of attraction. It follows that universal energy has to begin to flow in that new direction in response to the change as well. This redirection of universal energy is instantaneous, and there is no time lag. People often delay their own manifestations because they set a new focal point, observe that no physical changes have occurred, and then allow this physical observation to shift their focal point back to their original circumstances. guess what just happened? The universe did respond to their initial change in intention for a while, but their failure to maintain this focus has just caused the universal energy to be redirected in the same way, back to their old circumstances. This cycle happens continuously in many people's lives, causing them to perceive a massive time lag when it comes to physical manifestations. The only person who can hold up your own manifestations is yourself. No one else can withhold your good or manifest a new reality on your behalf. Perhaps the greatest news is that only you can do it for yourself. How fast your desired manifestations appear in your life will depend on how steadfastly you stay in that alternative realm where your desired conditions exist. So, when he says desired manifestations, he's at this point is talking about an external manifestation, right? And he's talking about staying in an alternative realm, an alternate realm. And for our intents and purposes here, you should, I definitely recommend reading this book. But for our intents and purposes, when he says alternate realm, understand that it's very much or the same thing to what we're talking about when we recognize the present sense of abundance we have right now, when we're just in this moment, okay? He's saying that if we stay with that and focus on that more often, he writes later, if you successfully stay in that alternate reality and never look back, then your reality will shift so drastically that you can hardly remember the way you lived just a few short years ago. So we're manifesting things all the time. And if you want to manifest something very different in your life, then change how you feel on the inside in a dramatic way. Shift how you feel on the inside in a dramatic way, and inevitably the external changes will happen too. That seems like common sense, but it's the kind of thing that we need to be reminded of. And usually the shifts that we make are gradual. They happen over time. They don't happen dramatically. And when they do happen dramatically, we often hear about them. That's when seeming miracles happen. People, solve a serious health problem very quickly, or they have a financial windfall very quickly, or they find the special person they want to spend the rest of their life with very quickly. But generally, this inner work, these inner shifts happen relatively slowly. I say slowly, meaning they don't happen overnight, but then over a series of months or a few short years, they can, result in dramatic changes. And that's a good way to go about it too. It doesn't have to be fast. Just understand you're always manifesting. Whether it's seemingly slow or fast is going to depend a lot of the time, or almost all of the time, on how you feel on the inside. And you can also think of times in your own life where these changes have been really fast. To give like a couple examples, for instance, like when, the pandemic started, people shifted how they lived their lives dramatically. People went from interacting with many others, all the time, to isolating. And after a few months of doing that, that became the new norm for a lot of us. Isolation, social distancing, working from home, shopping and going out in totally different ways. Our whole reality changed just like that. Or another good example that I can think of is I remember, when my wife was pregnant and we were having our daughter. And leading up to that, it was totally different than having a baby. One day it's just the two of you, and then all of a sudden there's three of you. And once that baby comes, I think most parents would tell you it's very different than if you don't have a baby. And after a couple months of having a baby, being with the baby all the time, you can't imagine how your life used to be. I remember having that feeling. Like Dot says, you can hardly remember the way you lived just a few short months ago. He says years ago, but months ago. Think about that, something like COVID or having a kid, how dramatic that shift or change is. So these similarly dramatic shifts and changes can happen just by focusing our energy in different ways. And over the course of a few months or a few years, they can really yield massive results. So again, this is a lot of common sense, and the more that we hear about it and remember it, generally speaking, the easier it is to apply.